I see you when you sleep. Elm Street was the kind of place people moved to when they were tired of chaos. The trees were old, the lawns were trimmed, and every mailbox had the same shiny brass numbers nailed on perfectly white picket fences. For Jonathan and Rachel Miller, it felt like a chance to start over. Clean slate, clean conscience. The house at 17 Elm Street was a towering Victorian relic, too cheap for its size. Rachel had called it a miracle. Jonathan had called it suspiciously underpriced. But they bought it anyway. It was day 3 in the new house when the first letter arrived. There was no return address, no name, just an envelope slid neatly into the mailbox, sealed with a single strip of plain masking tape. Jonathan opened it while Rachel fed the kids inside. "Welcome to Elm Street, Miller family. I've been watching this house for a long time. Now I watch you." The watcher at first, they laughed it off. A weird neighbor prank, maybe. Rachel suggested it was part of a local tradition. Jonathan, who hadn't liked how the realtor avoided eye contact during the signing, didn't laugh. That night, Rachel tucked 6-year-old Emily and 4-year-old Alex into bed, while Jonathan sat on the porch, staring into the dark. The street was quiet. Too quiet. He checked the mailbox again before bed. It was empty. By the end of the first week, they were unpacked. The kids were adjusting, and even Jonathan began to relax. But then came the second letter. This one was longer. "Your daughter likes the blue blanket, but she'll leave it on the floor tonight. Your son is afraid of the hallway. He sees things you don't. Rachel's perfume is lilac. She wears it even when Jonathan doesn't notice." It was handwritten, in thin, angular script. Jonathan read it twice before showing Rachel. "This isn't a prank anymore," he said. Rachel nodded slowly. Her face was pale. They knew about the blanket. Jonathan called the police. An officer came by, took the letters, and promised to keep an eye on things. But without a threat, there was little they could do. "Probably a neighbor messing around," the officer said. Jonathan installed cameras around the porch, the backyard, even inside the hallway. He didn't sleep well that night. 2 days later, another letter. "The cameras won't help. I'm not outside looking in. I'm in the walls. I see everything." They ripped open walls, searching for peepholes or wires. Nothing. On the 4th night, Emily screamed. Rachel ran into the bedroom, heart pounding. Emily was curled in the corner of the room, pointing at the closet. "He was standing right there," she whispered. "The tall man. He had no face." Jonathan checked the cameras. Nothing, no motion, no intrusions. He didn't tell Rachel that. The camera in Emily's room had glitched for exactly 10 seconds at 2:03 a.m. The next letter arrived inside the house, placed on the kitchen table. No one had unlocked the doors. "Jonathan, stop checking the cameras at night. You're not ready to see what I see." He stared at the note for a long time before locking every door and window again. He placed tape over the cracks. Slept with a hammer next to the bed. That night, Rachel woke up to whispers. Faint, unintelligible, coming from the vents. She crawled toward the floor vent beside the bed. The sound was clearer now. Children laughing, except the children were asleep. She stood up, hands trembling. Then, a soft knock, coming from inside the bedroom wall. 2 more days passed. No letters, no laughter, no knocking. Then came the worst one yet. "The children are beautiful. It's a shame one of them will disappear, but don't worry. I'll watch the other." Jonathan drove straight to the police with the letter. This time, they promised to investigate more thoroughly, but they had no suspects, no leads, no fingerprints. He and Rachel barely spoke that night. The kids stayed in their room. They didn't sleep. Then at 2:03 a.m., the front door creaked. "Open,"
Jonathan raced down the stairs, heart hammering.
The door stood ajar, but nothing. No one was there. Just one final envelope on the porch, sealed with masking tape. He picked it up with shaking hands. "I told you I don't knock. I'm already inside. You invited me in the moment you opened the door." Jonathan didn't sleep for the next 3 nights. He sat on the couch with the hammer still in his lap, cameras open on his laptop, phone ready to call 911. Every creak of the house made his pulse spike. Every time the air kicked on, he imagined something whispering through the vents. Rachel stayed with the kids in their room, locking the door from the inside and pushing a dresser in front of it. She hadn't spoken more than a few words since the letter on the porch. She barely ate. And every time Jonathan looked at her, it was like she was already mourning something that hadn't happened yet. But something was happening, and they had no idea what day. 10, the police finally sent someone to stay overnight. Officer Grady, a large, gruff man who clearly didn't believe in ghosts or letters that deliver themselves. He set up shop in the living room, sipping bad coffee and scanning the feeds from the cameras Jonathan had wired up. They covered the front door, the backyard, the stairwell, and both kids' bedrooms. Nothing, no movement. No voices, no letters. Grady stayed 2 nights. "This is a prank," he said finally. "Some sicko with too much time. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints. You guys need sleep." He left on the morning of day 12. That night, the smell began. At first, it was faint, like something damp, sour, then stronger, metallic, sharp, like pennies and mold and bleach. Rachel found it strongest near the vents. She taped them shut. Jonathan followed it to the attic. The wooden steps creaked under his weight. The air grew colder the higher he climbed. When he reached the attic, he pulled the string for the overhead bulb. It flickered on. Dust floated like snowflakes in the light. And in the far corner, something glimmered. He stepped closer. It was a stack of envelopes, old, yellowed, some half-rotted, all sealed with masking tape. He picked one up. The handwriting was unmistakable.
"They always leave, but the house keeps the secrets, and I keep watching. Dozens of letters, hundreds maybe, all addressed to no one."
All signed The Watcher. Day 13, the dreams began. Jonathan dreamt of a long hallway filled with doors that opened on their own. Behind each one was a different version of his life. Rachel sobbing over a small coffin, Emily screaming for help, but no sound coming out. Himself sitting in the attic, writing a letter and watching, always watching. He woke up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. The next day, Emily said something that made his blood run cold. "Daddy, the man in the wall told me not to be scared anymore. He said he's been waiting for you." Jonathan grabbed her by the shoulders. "What man, Emily? What did he look like?" She frowned, like she was trying to remember something she never quite saw. "He doesn't have a face," she said softly. "But he knows all of ours." That night, Jonathan decided they were leaving. They packed bags. Rachel didn't argue. The kids didn't cry. But just as they reached the front door, another letter was waiting, slid under the door without a sound. Jonathan stared at it. He didn't want to touch it, but he did. He peeled it open, hands shaking. "Leaving won't help. This isn't about the house. It's about you, Jonathan. You were always meant to come back." He didn't understand. Come back? He'd never been here before. He was sure of it. But then something started to rise in his mind, a memory he didn't recognize. A long hallway, a door with peeling red paint, a whisper, "You promised." He dropped the letter. Rachel looked at him, pale. What did it say? He didn't answer because something was wrong with the hallway. The door to the basement was open. They never used the basement. No one ever did. You can leave the house, but the house never leaves you. Jonathan stood frozen, staring at the open basement door. It hadn't been open the night before. He was sure of it. He locked it, taped it shut. Now the tape hung loosely, one end peeled, away like something had pressed from the inside until the seal gave way. Rachel clutched Emily and Alex behind him. The kids were quiet, too quiet, eyes wide and glossy like they could feel what Jonathan felt. Something was waiting, below. He took a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. Rachel whispered, "Don't go down there," but Jonathan didn't
Answer. He stepped onto the first stair, the wood creaking under his weight. Then the second, the third. The basement smelled of rot and rust and time.
The air was thick, heavy, like breathing underwater. The flashlight beam flickered as he reached the bottom. The basement was empty, just concrete, brick, and old wooden beams. But on the far wall, something caught the light. A door. He didn't remember seeing that when they moved in. It was smaller than a normal door and barely tall enough to walk through. Metal. Rusted. There was a number carved into it, 13. Jonathan stepped closer. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. Suddenly, behind him, a knock. Not on the door, not upstairs, from inside the wall. He spun around. The knock came again, and a whisper. Almost home. He ran back upstairs, breath ragged, locked the basement, taped it shut again, this time with layers, then moved the bookshelf in front of it. Rachel stood by the front door, still holding. The kids. What was down there? Jonathan didn't know how to explain it. So he lied. Just old pipes. That night, another letter appeared. On his pillow. He didn't hear it arrive. Rachel didn't see anything. The cameras showed nothing, just a new envelope, sealed, still warm. You opened the door, Jonathan, and now it remembers you. Day 15, Rachel's phone rang. A private number. She answered on speaker. Silence, then a man's voice, calm, cold. Emily likes apple slices for lunch. Alex hums in his sleep. Rachel's been looking up apartments in another state. But none of that matters. You were never meant to leave. Rachel screamed and threw the phone. It shattered. They packed again. Faster this time. No waiting, no goodbyes. Jonathan pulled the kids into the car, slammed the doors, and peeled out of the driveway. As they drove, Rachel whispered, "Where are we going?" "Anywhere," Jonathan said. "Just away." 1 hour later, they pulled into a motel off the interstate. Dingy, but far enough to feel safe. Rachel put the kids to sleep while Jonathan paced, checking the windows. Then he noticed something taped to the mirror. A letter. No one saw it placed. No knock. No sign, but it was there. "You forgot something. The house is still in you, Jonathan.
And soon you'll come back. You always do." He opened his phone, searched 17 Elm Street. An old article popped up. One buried deep.
Family of 4 vanishes from Elm Street home, 1997. The photo showed the same house, same porch, same number, different names, but in the photo, Jonathan looked closer. There was a man in the background, blurry, near the attic window. It looked just like him. Jonathan dropped the phone. Rachel asked, "What is it?" He didn't answer. Because in that moment, he remembered something, a dream. Or maybe not a dream, a hallway, a red door, a whisper. You were always meant to return because you never left. Some houses are built with bricks, others are built with memory. Day 16, motel room 6 smelled like mildew and cigarettes, but it was the first time Jonathan had seen his kids asleep without twitching, murmuring, or crying. He sat in the corner with the letter still in his hand. That line, "You never left," it echoed like thunder inside his skull. Jonathan couldn't sleep. He scrolled through old news archives, forum posts, blogs, anything about the house at 17 Elm Street. It went by different names over the years. The Listening House, The Quiet Watcher, Red Door Basement. The pattern was always the same. A family moves in. The letters begin. They try to leave. Something follows. And always, always, someone comes back. Sometimes willingly, sometimes not. Rachel stirred in bed. Jonathan looked up. She was sleepwalking, eyes open, but empty, her hands trembling as she opened the motel room door. He rushed over. "Rachel?" She didn't answer. She was staring out into the parking lot. He followed her gaze. In the far corner, barely visible in the dark, stood a man, tall, still, not moving, not breathing. Jonathan called out, "Who's there?" The man raised his arm and pointed at Jonathan. Rachel collapsed. Day 17. They checked out of the motel before sunrise. Rachel didn't remember anything, but she had bruises on her wrists like someone had grabbed her in her sleep. Jonathan tried to keep driving, but his phone GPS kept recalculating. No matter what destination he entered, it kept rerouting him back toward Elm Street. Eventually, the phone turned off entirely. Blank screen. And then, on the windshield, as they drove past an empty field, a smear of letters in dust appeared across the outside glass. "Welcome back." He pulled over, heart racing. The kids woke up crying in the back seat. Rachel screamed.
"Can't go back, Jonathan." But something was happening to the car. The doors locked. The radio turned on by itself. Static at first, then a voice. "Seatbelts on, let's go home."
The engine roared. The steering wheel twisted itself. The car turned on its own. Back toward Elm Street. Sunset. Back at 17 Elm Street. They stood on the porch again, bags in hand, keys cold in Jonathan's palm. They had no choice. The house had
called them back. Rachel cried as they crossed the threshold. The air inside felt thicker, like walking through syrup. The moment the door closed, the lights in the hallway flickered on. On the wall, a fresh envelope. He didn't want to read it,
but he had to. "Good, you're home. Now go down. Finish what you started." That night, the basement door was open again. Jonathan didn't fight it anymore. He grabbed the flashlight, walked down the creaking steps. The rusted metal door was still there. The one with the number 13 carved into it. This time, he opened it. Inside was a hallway, impossibly long and narrow, stretching into pitch-black darkness. The floor was damp. The walls pulsed like they were alive. As he stepped in, the door slammed shut behind him. He turned. No door. No way back. Only forward. The hallway began to whisper. "You've always lived here. You've always watched. Now it's your turn." At the end of the hallway, a chair sat facing a wall. On the wall, a mirror. Jonathan stepped forward, sat, looked at the reflection. He saw himself, but older, haggard, watching, writing. Behind him, dozens of sealed envelopes, all signed by his own hand. He was the watcher, and outside, in the real world, the family watched as the house fell silent. Jonathan was gone, no blood, no trace, only one final note pinned to the front door. A watcher has returned. The house is at rest, for now. Day 18. Rachel sat in the living room, staring at the front door. The house had gone quiet. No whispers, no letters, no knocks, and no Jonathan. He was gone, disappeared into the basement the night before. Alex and Emily didn't ask questions. It was like they already knew. Like the house had whispered the truth to them in their sleep. Rachel tried to leave the next morning. The car wouldn't start. The front gate was chained shut. The phones had no signal. The house wouldn't let them. Go midnight. Rachel heard the typewriter. Click, clack, ding, but they didn't own one. The sound came from the attic. She crept upstairs step by step, her breath shallow, heart pounding. At the top of the stairs, the attic door hung open. A faint glow flickered inside. She entered. The room was empty except for a desk in the center. On the desk, a typewriter, still warm. A single sheet of paper slid from the roller, typed in clean, deliberate font. There's always a watcher. Now there must be a replacement. The basement door creaked open again. Rachel turned and saw her children standing at the end of the hallway. Their eyes were glassy. Unblinking, Emily whispered, "Daddy says it's your turn now." Rachel backed away, but the attic door slammed shut behind her. She was locked in. The typewriter began typing on its own again, letter after letter, to her. About her, from her. Meanwhile, somewhere beneath the house, Jonathan sat at the desk in the narrow room with no windows. He couldn't remember how long he'd been down there. The days blended together. He only knew one thing. He had to write. Every day, every hour, his hand moved without rest, signing letters he didn't remember writing. Each envelope felt warm when sealed. He didn't know where they went, but somehow he knew they were being delivered. Day 21. The house on Elm Street had new curtains, new photos on the walls, a for sale sign out front, marked sold. But if you passed by at night, you might see a light in the attic or hear a typewriter clicking behind a sealed basement door, or receive a letter. No stamp, no return address, but one line typed neatly at the bottom. You are being watched. And if you looked close enough at the family photo in the foyer, you might notice there are 5 people in the frame, but only 4 live there now.